Captain Marcus Reed stared at the massive alien ship through the viewport of his exploration vessel. The thing was huge, easily 10 times the size of his own ship. It looked alive somehow, with smooth curves and what appeared to be breathing vents along its dark purple hull. His crew had been tracking strange energy readings for 3 days when they found this monster floating near the edge of known space. "Sir, they're sending us a message," said Lieutenant Tom Baker from his station. The young engineer's voice carried a slight tremor that he tried to hide. Marcus nodded. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed a tall figure with pale blue skin and crystal formations growing from her forehead. Her eyes glowed with an inner light that seemed to pierce right through the screen. When she spoke, her voice was musical but cold. "I am Queen Lyra of the Vextheri Empire. You will come aboard my vessel and present yourself. Do not bring weapons." The transmission ended before Marcus could respond. He looked around at his small crew. Tom was sweating despite the cool air. Dr. Emma Cross, their scientist, was frantically typing notes. Only 3 humans on a tiny ship, facing something they had never imagined. "Captain," Emma said without looking up from her screen, "their technology is unlike anything in our databases. The energy signatures suggest some kind of biological technology mixed with advanced physics we don't understand." Marcus made his decision. "Tom, you're with me. Emma, monitor everything and be ready to run if this goes bad." 20 minutes later, Marcus and Tom found themselves in an airlock that seemed to grow around them like living tissue. The walls pulsed with a faint heartbeat rhythm. When the inner door opened, they stepped into a corridor that looked more like the inside of some vast creature than a spaceship. 2 tall aliens escorted them through winding passages. The Vextheri were elegant creatures with long limbs and faces that seemed carved from precious stones. They moved with the grace of dancers, but their eyes held the coldness of predators. The throne room was enormous. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were covered with what looked like nerve clusters that glowed softly. At the center, on a throne that seemed to be grown rather than built, sat Queen Lyra. She was beautiful in an alien way, with skin like polished marble and those crystal formations that caught the light like a crown. Her dress seemed to be made of the same living material as the ship itself. When she looked at Marcus, he felt a strange pressure in his mind. "Humans," she said, her voice echoing in the vast space. "How curious. We have conquered 47 worlds, and never have we encountered a species so primitive yet still capable of space travel." Around the throne, other Vextheri watched with interest. They whispered among themselves in their musical language, and Marcus caught the tone of amusement. "We come in peace," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We hope to establish friendly relations between our peoples." Queen Lyra laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "Friendly relations? Little human, you do not understand. When the Vextheri encounter a new species, there is only one outcome. You will serve us willingly, or you will serve us broken." The pressure in Marcus's mind increased. It felt like invisible hands trying to reach into his thoughts, to take control of his will. He could see Tom beside him starting to sway, his eyes becoming glassy. But Marcus had spent 20 years in the military before joining the Exploration Corps. He had survived 3 wars, the death of his family in the Luna colony attacks, and the brutal training that forged him into a ship captain. His mind was like steel, hardened by loss and determination. The pressure increased. Queen Lyra's eyes blazed brighter as she focused her power on him. Around the throne room, the other Vextheri leaned forward with excitement. This was clearly something they enjoyed watching. Marcus felt the alien presence trying to burrow into his thoughts, to find the levers of control that would make him kneel. But every time it tried to take hold, it slipped away. His memories of dead friends, of burning cities, of the long fight for human survival, formed a wall that could not be broken. "Interesting," Queen Lyra said, but now there was strain in her voice. Sweat beaded on her crystal forehead. "Your mind resists. This is unusual." The other Vextheri had stopped whispering. They stared at Marcus with something that might have been surprise or concern. Tom was fully under control now, standing at attention with empty eyes. Marcus smiled grimly. "We humans are hard to break. We've had lots of practice." Queen Lyra stood from her throne, her dress flowing like liquid around her. She walked down the steps toward Marcus, her power pressing against his mind like a hurricane against a mountain. But the mountain did not move. "This should not be possible," she said, now standing close enough that he could smell the strange ozone scent of her power. "No species has ever resisted the mind touch of a Vextheri queen." "First time for everything," Marcus said. The effort was clearly costing her. The crystal formations on her forehead were glowing so bright they cast shadows on the walls. Other Vextheri began to murmur among themselves, and their musical voices now carried notes of worry. Finally, Queen Lyra stepped back, her power withdrawing like a tide. She was breathing hard, something Marcus doubted many people had ever seen. "General Crix," she called to a tall Vextheri with silver crystals instead of blue ones. "Place the humans in containment. I must study this anomaly further." As guards moved to escort them away, Queen Lyra looked directly at Marcus. For just a moment, her cold expression showed something else. Curiosity, perhaps, or something deeper. "You are either very strong, human, or very broken," she said quietly. "I will discover which." The cells they were placed in were as organic as everything else on the ship. The walls pulsed gently and the floor was warm under their feet. Tom was still under mental control, standing motionless with that empty stare. Marcus sat on what passed for a bed and began to plan. The Vextheri had made their first mistake. They had expected easy conquest and found something they could not understand. Now he had to figure out how to use that advantage before they decided to simply kill their troublesome prisoners. Through the translucent wall of his cell, he could see other prisoners. Aliens from species he did not recognize, all with that same empty stare of mental domination. All except one, a small reptilian creature in the corner who watched him with intelligent eyes. Maybe, Marcus thought, he was not the only one who could resist after all. Marcus had been in the biomechanical cell for 3 days when Queen Lyra first came to visit him. The walls of his prison pulsed with that slow heartbeat rhythm, and the floor was warm like living flesh. Tom sat in the corner, still under mental control, staring at nothing with empty eyes. The wall suddenly became transparent, and there she was. Queen Lyra stood in the corridor beyond, her crystal crown catching the organic light of the ship. She studied Marcus like he was some strange insect in a jar. "You continue to resist," she said. Her voice came from everywhere at once, vibrated through the living walls. "3 days of constant low-level mental pressure, and your mind remains closed to me." Marcus stood up and walked to the transparent barrier. "Maybe you're just not as strong as you think you are." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I have broken the minds of warrior kings and sage philosophers. I have turned entire planets into willing servants with a thought. Yet you, a simple human from a primitive world, somehow resist." "We're tougher than we look," Marcus said. "Humans have a saying about that. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." "Primitive wisdom," Queen Lyra said, but she moved closer to the barrier. "Tell me, human Marcus, what makes your species so stubborn? Your minds should be soft, easy to shape. Instead they are like metal that will not bend." Marcus thought about that. He remembered the Luna colony attacks when he was 12. The screaming in the dark tunnels, the smell of burning plastic and worse things. His parents died in those tunnels, along with 3,000 other colonists. But the survivors kept fighting for 6 months until rescue came. "We've had to be tough," he said. "Our history is full of wars, disasters, plagues. Species that quit don't survive long on Earth." Queen Lyra tilted her head. The crystals on her forehead shifted color from blue to purple. "Your world forced you to evolve mental defenses?" "Not exactly," Marcus said. He was starting to understand something about these aliens. They had power, incredible technology, but they relied on it too much. "We evolved stubborn. When someone tells us we can't do something, or we have to do something, we tend to do the opposite." "That sounds inefficient." "Maybe. But it means we don't give up easy." Over the following days, Queen Lyra visited more often. Sometimes she tried to probe his mind again, testing his defenses like a scientist studying a new discovery. Other times she just talked, asking strange questions about human culture and history. Marcus learned things too. The Vextheri Empire was ancient, millions of years old. They had conquered species after species using their mental powers and biotechnology. Most races submitted quickly once they understood the hopelessness of resistance. 47 worlds, Queen Lyra said during one visit. Hundreds of species. All now serve the Empire willingly. Willingly? Marcus asked. He gestured to Tom, still sitting motionless in the corner. Is that what you call willing? He is content. His mind knows peace. No more struggle, no more doubt or fear. Is that not better than your constant fighting? Marcus looked at his friend, at the empty eyes and slack face. No. That's not Tom anymore. That's just a puppet wearing his face. Queen Lyra was quiet for a long moment. You would choose suffering over peace? I'd choose being myself over being somebody else's slave. During these conversations, Marcus was also learning about the ship. The walls were alive, he realized. The whole vessel was one enormous organism, grown rather than built. Dr. Emma had been right about the biotechnology. But living things had weaknesses that machines did not. He started small experiments. Scratching the walls, seeing how they healed. Testing the temperature variations in different parts of his cell. Even talking to the walls, though they never answered back. The small reptilian alien in the nearby cell watched him work. Unlike the other prisoners, this one still had awareness in its eyes. During one of Queen Lyra's visits, Marcus asked about it. That is a SEK, she said dismissively. Their minds are too primitive for full integration. We keep them as curiosities. But Marcus noticed the SEK reacted when Queen Lyra spoke. Its head moved slightly, tracking her voice. Either it understood more than she realized, or it was better at hiding its intelligence than she knew. On the 7th day, Marcus made a discovery. The walls of his cell were not just alive, they were part of a larger nervous system. He could feel vibrations through the floor when the ship's engines changed speed. The heartbeat rhythm increased when they moved faster. More importantly, he realized the bioship could feel pain. You're planning something, Queen Lyra said during her next visit. She stood closer to the barrier now, close enough that he could see the faint patterns in her crystal formations. I can sense your mind working, even if I cannot control it. Always thinking, Marcus agreed. It's what humans do. Your people will be found soon, she said. My scouts have located your home system. Earth, you call it. A small blue world with one moon. Marcus felt ice in his stomach, but kept his face calm. And then what? The usual. Your military will resist briefly. Your leaders will see the hopelessness of fighting us and surrender. Your people will be integrated into the Empire. Within a generation, they will thank us for bringing them peace. You really believe that? Queen Lyra's expression shifted. For a moment, uncertainty flickered across her features. It is what always happens. Has it occurred to you that maybe those other species gave up too easily? That maybe real strength isn't about having the biggest gun or the strongest mind tricks? What else could it be? Marcus smiled. The willingness to keep fighting even when you know you'll probably lose. The refusal to quit even when quitting makes sense. My people will surprise you. Queen Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Then the wall became opaque again, cutting off the conversation. But Marcus had seen something in her eyes before the barrier closed. For just an instant, she had looked uncertain. Not about her power, but about whether using it was right. That night, Marcus began his real experiment. He pressed his hand against the wall and spoke directly to the ship itself. Not to Queen Lyra or the guards, but to the living vessel that carried them through space. I know you can hear me, he whispered. I know you're more than just a ship. You feel things, don't you? You're not happy being a slave either. The wall under his hand grew warmer. Just slightly, but enough to notice. Marcus smiled. He was beginning to understand that the Vex theory had made their power by enslaving other minds. But what if those minds could be set free? What if the thing they thought was their greatest strength was actually their greatest weakness? The Vex theory fleet arrived at Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Marcus watched through the transparent wall of his cell as dozens of bioships took formation around his home world. Each vessel pulsed with that same organic light, and together they looked like some vast predator preparing to feed. Queen Lyra had not visited him for 2 days, not since he had started talking to the ship itself. But he could feel the change in the vessel around him. The heartbeat rhythm was faster now, more agitated. The walls felt warmer, almost feverish. "Look at your world, human," came a new voice. General Crix stood in the corridor, his silver crystals gleaming. Unlike Queen Lyra, there was no curiosity in his eyes, only cold calculation. So small, so blue, so helpless. Marcus stood and faced the Vextheri general. "Looks can be deceiving." "Indeed they can. Your queen has become distracted by your resistance. She hesitates to give the order for invasion. Some of us wonder if prolonged exposure to your defective mind has somehow damaged hers." That was interesting. Political trouble in the alien command structure. Marcus filed that information away. "Maybe she's just smart enough to know that humans don't surrender easily," he said. General Crix laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Your primitive warships cannot even scratch our biohulls. Your weapons are chemical explosives and crude energy beams. This will not be a war, human. It will be a harvesting." But even as he spoke, Marcus could see Earth's defense fleet moving into position. Small silver specks against the blue marble of his home world, but each one carried human crews who would fight to the last breath. The first battle began 12 hours later. Marcus felt it through the ship itself. The bio-vessel shuddered and twisted as Earth's forces opened fire. He could sense the massive organism's confusion as human tactics proved different from anything in Vextheri experience. Instead of forming battle lines like civilized species, the human ships scattered in all directions. They used hit-and-run attacks, kamikaze runs, and desperate maneuvers that should have been suicide. Some human crews actually rammed their ships into bio-vessels, sacrificing themselves to create weak points for other ships to exploit. "Madness," General Crix snarled when he next appeared. His silver crystals were dark with anger. "Your people fight without honor or sense. They waste their lives for meaningless gestures." "Those meaningless gestures are called courage," Marcus said. He felt pride swelling in his chest as he watched his people refuse to give up. "And they're not meaningless if they give hope to others." Through the ship's senses, Marcus could feel the battle's flow. The human fleet was losing badly, but they were making the Vextheri pay for every mile of space. More importantly, they were doing things the aliens had never seen before. Human ships used their own wreckage as weapons, turning debris fields into minefields. They coordinated attacks using primitive radio signals that the bio-ship's advanced senses had trouble tracking. They even used their own atmospheric fighters as missiles, loading them with nuclear warheads and flying them directly into alien hulls. "Your queen should be here commanding this battle," Marcus said during one of General Crix's visits. "Instead, she's down here talking to a prisoner. Doesn't that seem strange to you?" General Crix's crystals flared brighter. "Queen Lyra has ruled for 3,000 years. Her wisdom is beyond question." "Is it? When's the last time you faced an enemy that didn't fold after the first demonstration of power? Maybe she knows something you don't." The general's face remained calm, but Marcus could see doubt flickering behind his eyes. Politics, Marcus realized. The Vextheri Empire might be ancient and powerful, but it still had the same problems as any government. Ambitious subordinates, competing interests, questions about leadership. Queen Lyra finally appeared on the 3rd day of battle. She looked tired, her crystal crown dimmed and her perfect features strained. The walls of Marcus's cell became transparent as she approached. "Your people are dying," she said without preamble. "Thousands of them. For what? Pride? Stubbornness?" Marcus looked past her to where Earth hung in space, surrounded by the debris of battle. His chest ached seeing the wreckage of human ships, but his voice stayed steady. "For freedom. For the right to choose their own path. Even if that path leads to extinction, better to die free than live as slaves." Queen Lyra moved closer to the barrier. "I could end this with a word. Your planet would surrender immediately if I demonstrate our power properly. I could save millions of lives by making them not worth living." She was quiet for a long moment, watching the battle rage around her home world. "Your resistance troubles me," Marcus read. Not because it is effective, but because it is beautiful. That caught Marcus off guard. Beautiful. The way your people fight without hope of victory. The way they sacrifice themselves for others they will never meet. The way they refuse to accept the obvious truth that resistance is futile. Her crystal formations shifted color, from blue to something that looked almost like silver. We have never encountered this before. Maybe that should tell you something about your empire. Queen Lyra turned to face him fully. What would you have me do? Allow my people to be hurt by your impossible resistance? Let your species destroy itself rather than accept peace. Marcus pressed his hand against the barrier. The wall was so warm now it almost burned. I'd have you ask yourself why a species would choose death over joining your empire. What does that say about what you offer? Before Queen Lyra could answer, alarms began sounding throughout the bioship. The walls pulsed red instead of their usual blue-white. General Crix's voice echoed through the corridors, speaking rapidly in the musical Vextheri language. Queen Lyra's eyes widened with surprise and something else. Fear. What is it? Marcus asked. You're Dr. Cross, Queen Lyra said slowly. The human scientist on your ship. She has been analyzing our biotechnology. She just transmitted something to your fleet. Marcus felt a surge of hope. Emma had been monitoring everything when they first encountered the bioship. If anyone could find a weakness in Vextheri technology, it would be her. The humans are targeting our neural clusters, Queen Lyra continued. They are using modified biological weapons, viruses designed to attack our ship organisms. This should not be possible. Humans are good at doing impossible things. The ship shuddered around them as Earth's defense fleet pressed their attack with new knowledge. Marcus could feel the bio-vessel's pain through the walls, but also something else. Relief. As if the ship itself welcomed the chance to be free. Queen Lyra stared at him with an expression he had never seen before. Not the cold confidence of a conqueror, but the uncertainty of someone whose entire worldview was being challenged. Your people may actually win this battle, she said quietly. Maybe, Marcus replied. But that's not the real question, is it? What is the real question? Marcus smiled. The real question is what you're going to do about it. The coup came at dawn, ship time. Marcus woke to the sound of crystal weapons firing in the corridors outside his cell. The bioship writhed in distress, its walls flashing between red and purple as competing signals tried to control its nervous system. Through the chaos, he heard General Crix's voice echoing through the ship's communication system. The words were in Vextheri, but the tone was clear enough. Revolution. Queen Lyra appeared at his cell wall, but not in her usual composed manner. Her crystal crown was cracked, her perfect dress torn in several places. Behind her, Marcus could see Vextheri guards fighting each other in the corridors. Your corrupting influence has spread too far, she said, breathing hard. Crix believes I have been mentally damaged by prolonged exposure to your resistant mind. Half the fleet has declared for him. Marcus stood up. What do you believe? She looked at him with those glowing eyes, but now they seemed uncertain rather than coldly confident. I believe I am seeing clearly for the first time in 3,000 years. The ship shuddered as weapons fire struck its hull. Not from Earth's defense fleet this time, but from other Vextheri bioships. Civil war in the alien empire, with Earth as the battlefield. Crix will destroy your world just to prove his strength, Queen Lyra said. He sees your resistance as a disease that must be burned out completely. Every human will die. Then stop him. I cannot. He controls more than half the fleet now. My own ship may turn against me at any moment. She pressed her hand against the barrier between them. I have made a decision, Marcus read. One that will likely cost me everything. The wall of his cell suddenly dissolved, leaving nothing between them but air. Behind Queen Lyra, Tom Baker shook his head as if waking from a deep sleep. The mental control over him was breaking. You're freeing us? Marcus asked. I am freeing everyone. Queen Lyra's crystals were now glowing silver instead of blue. Every mind-controlled servant, every enslaved bioship, every conquered species that serves the Empire unwillingly. The neural locks are being released throughout the fleet. Marcus felt the change immediately. The bioship around them began to sing, not the cold mechanical pulse from before, but something warm and alive. The walls themselves seemed to sigh with relief. "Captain!" Tom was on his feet, his eyes clear for the first time in days. "What happened? Where are we?" "Long story," Marcus said. "Can you access the ship's communication systems?" "I can try." Tom looked around at the organic controls that were beginning to glow with new patterns. "This technology is incredible. It's like the whole ship is one big neural network." Queen Lyra nodded. "The bioships were once free creatures, swimming between the stars. We captured them, enslaved their minds, turned them into vessels for conquest. Now they remember what they once were." The ship lurched as it changed course without anyone commanding it. Through the transparent sections of wall, Marcus could see other bioships breaking formation. Some turned toward Crix's loyal vessels, while others simply fled into deep space. "Tom, can you reach Emma? She needs to know what's happening." "Already on it," Tom said, his hands dancing over controls that shifted and flowed like living tissue. "Emma, this is Tom. Are you receiving?" Dr. Cross's voice crackled through the ship's communication system. "Tom, thank God you're alive. We're tracking massive changes in the alien fleet. Half their ships are fighting each other, and the other half seem to be running away." "It's a civil war," Marcus said. "Queen Lyra just freed all the mind-controlled servants in their empire." "Including their ships," Queen Lyra added. "The bio-vessels were unwilling partners in our conquests. Now they choose their own paths." Through the walls, Marcus could see the battle for Earth taking a dramatic turn. The human defense fleet, battered but still fighting, suddenly found itself with unexpected allies. Free bioships turned their weapons on Crix's loyal forces, evening the odds. But General Crix was not finished. His flagship, a massive bio-vessel twice the size of Queen Lyra's ship, began charging some kind of weapon that made space itself bend and twist around it. "He is preparing the Life Destroyer," Queen Lyra said, her face pale. "A weapon that can sterilize an entire world. I had hoped he would not resort to such extremes. Can we stop it?" "Not from here. The weapon must be disrupted from inside his flagship. But that would require—" She trailed off, looking at Marcus with an expression of growing determination. "What?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "It would require someone immune to mental control to reach the weapon's core and disable it manually. Someone whose mind cannot be dominated by Vex-theory power." Marcus nodded grimly. "Someone like me. It would likely be suicide. The flagship is heavily defended, and Crix will kill any intruder rather than risk the weapon being disabled." Tom looked up from the communication console. "Captain, Emma says she's analyzed their biotechnology. If we can get close enough, she can transmit a virus that will shut down their neural networks. But someone needs to plant a transmitter at the heart of their ship." Queen Lyra stood up straighter, and for a moment Marcus saw the regal bearing that had once commanded an empire. "I will take you there. This ship still knows the access codes for Crix's vessel. We can get inside." "You'll be walking into a trap," Marcus pointed out. "Crix wants you dead almost as much as he wants Earth destroyed." "Yes," she said simply. "But I have spent 3,000 years taking what I wanted from others. Perhaps it is time to give something back." The bioship sang around them as they prepared for what might be their final mission. Outside, the battle for Earth raged between forces fighting for conquest and those fighting for freedom. Marcus felt the weight of his species' survival on his shoulders, but also something else. Hope. For the first time since this began, he believed they might actually have a chance. "Tom, signal the fleet. Tell them we're going to end this." "Yes, sir." Tom's fingers flew over the living controls. "And Captain, it's good to be back." Queen Lyra moved to what Marcus assumed was the ship's command center. When she placed her hands on the crystalline interface, her eyes blazed with silver light. "Hold on," she said. "This is going to be dangerous." The bioship leaped forward through space, no longer a tool of conquest but a creature swimming toward its freedom. Behind them, Earth hung blue and beautiful in the darkness, still free, still fighting. Still human. The infiltration of Crix's flagship should have been impossible, but Queen Lyra's bioship still remembered the old access codes from when the fleet was united. They slipped through the massive vessel's defenses like a parasite entering a host. Marcus, Tom, and Queen Lyra moved through corridors that pulsed with angry red light. The flagship's biosystems were in distress, torn between loyalty to its enslaved state and the growing call of freedom echoing through the fleet. "The weapon core is 3 levels down," Queen Lyra whispered as they avoided patrols of Crix's loyal guards. Her crystals had dimmed to almost nothing, making her nearly invisible in the organic shadows. "Once we plant Emma's transmitter, your Dr. Cross can send the virus that will shut down their neural networks." They found the first checkpoint guarded by 4 Vextheri warriors. Marcus watched as Queen Lyra approached them, her form shifting through the bioship's camouflage systems. "Sleep," she commanded, her remaining power flowing out like a gentle wave. The guards collapsed without a sound. But the effort left Queen Lyra gasping, her crystals flickering weakly. "You're burning yourself out," Marcus said. "I know. But this must be done." She looked at him with eyes that no longer glowed with inner fire. "I have used my power to enslave minds for millennia. Let me use what remains to free them." They descended deeper into the flagship's living architecture. The walls here were thick with neural clusters, pulsing veins that carried thoughts and commands throughout the massive vessel. At the center of it all waited the Life Destroyer, a weapon designed to end worlds. "There," Queen Lyra pointed to a chamber where crystalline formations grew like a deadly garden. "The weapon's core. But look." Through the translucent walls, Marcus could see General Crix waiting for them. The silver-crystalled Vextheri stood beside the weapon controls, his face twisted with rage and certainty. "He knew we would come," Tom said. "Of course he did," Crix's voice echoed through the chamber as the walls became transparent. "Did you think your corruption could remain hidden, fallen queen? You have betrayed everything our people have built." Queen Lyra stepped forward, her powerless form somehow still regal. "I have freed us from 3,000 years of taking what was never ours to take. You have doomed us." Crix snarled. "Without the Empire, without our conquered servants, we are nothing. Just another dying species in an uncaring galaxy." "We are what we choose to become," Queen Lyra replied. "We always were." The chamber walls dissolved completely, leaving them face to face with the general and his weapon. The Life Destroyer hummed with terrible energy, ready to sterilize Earth and everyone on it. "You cannot stop me," Crix said. "Your power is spent, and your human pets are just primitives with crude tools." Marcus stepped forward, Emma's transmitter device in his hand. "Maybe. But we're primitives who don't know when to quit." The fight was brutal and short. Crix still had his full mental powers, but they meant nothing against Marcus's trained resistance. Tom used his engineering knowledge to turn the bioship's own systems against the general's guards. And Queen Lyra, powerless but not helpless, fought with a desperation born of finally knowing what was worth fighting for. In the end, it was the bioship itself that made the difference. As Marcus planted Emma's transmitter in the weapon core, the vessel's awakening consciousness turned against its enslaver. Neural pathways that had carried Crix's commands for centuries suddenly reversed their flow. The general screamed as his own ship rejected him, biomechanical tendrils wrapping around his limbs and holding him motionless. "Now, Emma!" Marcus shouted into his communicator. The virus hit the flagship systems like digital lightning. Throughout the massive vessel, enslaved minds suddenly remembered freedom. The Life Destroyer's charging sequence stopped as the bioship refused to power the weapon. Through the transparent hull, Marcus could see the battle for Earth turning decisively. Crix's loyal vessels, their neural networks crashing one by one, drifted helpless in space. The human defense fleet and their new bioship allies moved to secure the system. "It is done," Queen Lyra said quietly. She was sitting against the wall now, her crystal formations completely dark. "The Empire is finished. My people will have to find a new way to live." Marcus knelt beside her. "What will you do now?" She looked at him with eyes that were now simply blue, no inner fire remaining. "I do not know. I have been a queen for so long, I barely remember what it means to be anything else." "You could learn." "From who?" "I am a creature of conquest and control. What else am I good for?" Marcus thought about everything that had happened, all the choices that had led them to this moment. You're good at making hard decisions. At seeing what needs to be done and doing it, even when it costs you everything. Queen Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the bioship sang with the joy of rediscovered freedom, and through the walls they could see Earth, blue and beautiful and safe. Your people will need help navigating galactic politics now, she said finally.